Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolbarger. Welcome to this week's update. It's August 1st, and so we're going to look back on a very climatic week. I think it's important for us as we jump into all this because in a sense I can tell you I was wanting to hold off for this report because news is breaking all around us, and we're in one of those situations now where we're waiting for the first domino, in a sense, to fall. And I have a feeling it's going to be soon, and that's always an issue of defining what is soon mean. But I think 24 to 48 hours. Our world could be completely different with everything that's at play here. So, but I'm going to give you the information that I can at this particular time, and we'll just jump into it. So we kind of start with our news bites. As I mentioned, what a week. What a week. We'll begin with Benjamin Netanyahu, who is basically firmly in control, and his quote is, "We will settle accounts with anyone who hurts us, anyone who kills our children, anyone who murders our citizens, anyone who harms our country. Blood will be upon his head." And so we know the assassinations of both in Hezbollah, the number one guy there, and as well as in Hamas, in Tehran, of all places, the number one guy there as well. The response to all of this is what we're waiting to see. The number two guy, I guess you would say, in Hezbollah, right underneath, I call him number one guy, but he's the right-hand man of Nasrallah. But the number two guy, Haj Moshan, and Hezbollah, was eliminated, as you know, in Beirut. And Hezbollah is denying that. Originally, this is how they do it. They deny that the attempt was successful, but the bottom line is that they're having the funeral as I speak today. And the mobs on the scene of the strike in Beirut are calling upon Hezbollah to attack Israel. And again, that's what we're hearing both in Iran as well as Hezbollah in Lebanon. And the truth is, if and when the time comes, my expectation is that we will see Iran strike from Iran, followed up by a strike from Hezbollah in Lebanon, followed by the Houthis from Yemen, followed by whatever they can muster within the West Bank. I think Syria will be at play as well. So again, all fronts, I think, will attempt to get into the fray at this particular time. The United States Secretary of Defense has come out. We know that we have aircraft carriers and, major support in the seas heading towards the coast of the Mediterranean, Lebanon. But the U.S. Secretary of Defense, quote, "If Israel is attacked by Hezbollah or any others, we will help it defend itself." And this seems to be the track that we're now in, that the U.S. is basically saying, we're going to help on the defensive side of things. We will do whatever we can, but we will not help on the offensive side of things. We're going to have to wait and see how all this transpires, because as you know, we're in a election year, and decisions are being made to acquire votes at this time. So, Aragon, here we go with Turkey. Aragon is threatening for Turkey to actually invade Israel. And if Turkey invades Israel, just keep in mind they'll be doing it with American weapons. Interesting times in which we live, don't you agree? And then on a sad note, after recent ops, everything that's transpired, because the Gaza is actually quite quiet at this particular time in terms of the military might of Hamas has been crushed. The only issue that remains really there, I think we have mop-up operations. And as you know, Hamas is an idea. It'll never go away. And so, but the military might of Hamas has been crushed. And so the only issue really is the hostages. And I don't think the Hamas has ever had any intentions of releasing any of the hostages. It's the ploy of terrorism. It's how it works. It's the bait and switch. It's the let's give them hope only to pull the rug out from under them. And I think most Israelis are coming to realize that. But the sad news is that after recent ops in Gaza, the IDF believes that some of the hostages in Gaza may never be found. Best guess estimates now is that less than half of the hostages remain alive. Well, now we go to our major articles, and as a reminder, make sure you grab the PDF PowerPoint that accompanies this presentation. There's a lot more information there, and I will say that normally I try to keep these brief, but with all that's going on, I think it's more important to give you all the details than to keep it within under a certain amount of time. So I'm going to make my way through this. Iran is now threatening, these are the major articles, to do a direct attack upon Israel. The Ayatollah has instructed Iran to launch a direct attack on Israel in retaliation for the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. Remember, it took place in Tehran on Wednesday, and not just in Tehran, but kind of within a football field of the president's residency. I mean, it was an incredible strike. I have no idea how these precision rockets, missiles, whatever work, but from what I'm told, that the rocket actually went through his window into his bedroom and actually imploded upon him. And this is in the downtown heartbeat of Tehran. And so an order was given to the Iranian Supreme National Security Council to strike Israel. And as I said, we're dealing with funerals right now, and I think within the next 24 to 48 hours, we'll see something. And that's the source's Jewish Breaking News. And then Netanyahu on Wednesday night, last night, warned that there could be challenging days ahead and that Israel was prepared for any scenario, as he spoke of Israel's existential battle against Tehran. That's the head of the octopus, as you know. And now not only is the threat from Iran, but Hezbollah is prepping for war. The American news agency, the AP, reports that Hezbollah has started to move precision-guided missiles to possible launch sites in preparation for possible use in an all-out war with Israel. And again, keep in mind these precision rockets, missiles, have GPS, and so very accurate. And Hezbollah possesses an unknown quantity of these type of missiles, and has basically come out to say, in our crosshairs, we have Haifa, we have Tel Aviv, we have Jerusalem, we have the Ramat David Air Force Base. All of them is within striking range of these precision rockets. And then, you know, the headlines that have come out, whether it's the Washington Post or New York Times or the BBC, it's just crazy. The influence and the focus and the shift and the manipulations of media. So this dude is not a moderate. He's rejoicing in these pictures that you see over the deaths that took place on October 7th. He's the one that said, we'll do this again and again and again. And so the reality of, labeling him as a moderate is just insanity once again. And this is what's taken place throughout the headlines of the world newspaper and media sites, that somehow because Israel took this guy out, there'll be no possibility of hostages released because he was the moderate voice. That is not true. And as I mentioned before, I never have felt that Hamas had any intentions of releasing one hostage. And so again, there's an article here about the hostage negotiations. And again, what impact will this have upon them? We're going to have to wait and see. Like I said, I think Hamas is back to the ground. I think Sinwar has, whether it's a death wish, whether he wants to be Shaheed, that remains to be seen. But the reality is that Israel has been so successful in taking out top commanders that now he sits just about alone. And so in this desperation of times, if ever there would be an opportunity to halt what's taken place, which is the inevitable, it would be now, and have negotiations of a ceasefire and hostage release. But we're going to have to wait and see. Because again, the concept would be that Hanaya was the moderate voice. Not true. There's an article here that I've entitled Say It's Not So. And again, who knows? And a few weeks ago, I talked about conspiracy theories and trusted news sources and all of that. And I think it's important to try to mine them. But last week, or actually last Sunday, it was reported that many in Israel were shocked by a report that the BBC gave that indicated that a United States leading diplomatic figure, I think his name's Hochstein, was giving the Lebanese government prior warning about Israeli strikes, that he was leaking information to them. I can't follow up on that. I can't put a stamp of this is what's going on, but I think it's important to realize back channels and where the U.S. stands in all of this. And so I thought I would report it. Again, the quote from the BBC was, as soon as Hochstein had obtained information about any activity that was supposed to be carried out on Lebanese soil, he would warn Hezbollah and say that the Israelis are ready to respond at any time and any place. And so I'll leave that with you. The Olympics are going on, and we know the horrific blasphemy that took place there. But even worse than that, in my opinion, in the Israeli-Paraguay soccer match, you'll see in the pictures that during the Hatikva, part of the crowd stood and chanted Genocide Olympics as well as Heil Hitler. And again, it's called the People's Defense Organization. The threat of the Israelis, athletes, again, they make no bones about it. And I'll give you a quote at the end here from Ali Weisel, in a sense, about believing the threats of your enemies. But they've issued a document that basically has said you're not invited to Israel athletes. You're not invited to the Paris Olympics. If you come, take into account that we intend to repeat the events of Munich 1972. And as you know, that's when many of the Israeli athletes were murdered by Hamas, Fatah, Palestinian terrorists. So that's the threat that is still out there, and we're still in the middle of the Olympics. So many people are still holding their breath to see what will transpire. But can you imagine being in a stadium, the Hatikva, the Jewish national anthem being played, and hearing the chants of Heil Hitler and the Nazi salute and the Palestinian flags? I have a note here about the silence that is going on with the Palestinian Authority. Again, keep in mind when Hezbollah launched the rocket that struck in the Golan Heights in the Druze community, 12, and now I think it's up to 13 children were murdered. I've seen the photos, and I wouldn't want any to stumble upon them because the carnage is horrific. There's limbs everywhere. An intended attack. And so the world, how do you respond? If this attack was anywhere else, there would be a public outpouring. The Palestinian Authority knows how to condemn terror attacks. They talk about it, but it's been silent. They have not whispered a word. Their silence about this horrific attack is deafening. And so the PA's silence in the face of the murder of these 12 children tells us more about its values and its support of terror than any rhetoric coming out of Abbas in response to Ukraine or Russia or whatever it may be. Again, I bring this up because there are some that still believe that Fatah or the Palestinian Authority are the moderates, and that if we could just get rid of Hamas and we could replace Hamas with Fatah to lead Gaza, then that would be the highway to a two-state solution, and we'd have 2 states for 2 people, and we'd have peace. No way. The hatred continues. It's on the same level between Hamas, the Palestinian Authority, and Fatah. I could go on and on. Islamic Jihad. So, a question for you, because I know there's a lot of believers, obviously, that watch this, and I know there's an issue of standing with Israel today. And I know that in some of these confrontations, I think it's important that we understand what we're saying, what we're doing. In my stance, I would say I'm pro-Israel. I stand with Israel, but please don't label me then anti-Palestinian, anti-innocence, that I'm all in favor of whatever Israel decides to do and the hell with the other side. That's not true. That's not true at all. I just believe that God, in his master plan, has a plan for Israel, and that I am praying, and our ministry is praying, that they come to know Jesus. And we believe that God has called us to be a blessing, to stand with, to support, to pray for Israel at this time. So the article simply says, can you pray this prayer? Open question. Lord, you who already know where this is going, command and direct Israel's response. Grant the government wisdom and courage, empower and give success to the IDF, silence fools and evil men, and thwart the efforts of the enemy. Shamar Israel, or the guardian of Israel, that's a reference to Psalm 121:4. God, please guard, protect, fight for, and deliver your nation. Defeat and demoralize their foes. Degrade and expose the impotent Allah. And then ending with, may your name be lifted high. your arm be made visible to all of Israel and to all the nations, that you will see and know that you, the Lord God of Israel, you alone are God. I can pray that prayer. Can you? And then the what's next, again, as I told you to begin with, bated breath, waiting to see what happens. Hezbollah's preparing a strategic missile units because of the death of Fuad Shakur. And it seems like in the reports that I have that Friday or Saturday, there may be attempts on Tel Aviv. And then we know that there will be attacks carried out. At least the Ayatollah is saying we're striking. So you've got that. You've got Lebanon. You've got Iran. You've got Yemen. All of so. There are those that truly believe that the Great War is coming. And then out of the United States, we've advanced 12 warships to the Middle East from the moment of the killing of the Hezbollah operative and Hamas. So, tick, 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 tock. I mentioned L.A. Weiss. I mentioned the quote that simply says, the greatest tragedy of the Jewish people is that they listen to the promises of their friends and not the threats of their enemy. When your enemy threatens your existence, you better believe the threat. Couple slides as we end. Double standards, the craziness, the insanity of anti-Semitism. At the Paris Olympics, Israelis are forbidden to wear the yellow ribbon that signifies bring them back, bring the hostages back. And yet the Palestinians or the Arabs are allowed to wear these shirts that you see depicting the IDF dropping bombs on children playing soccer. Funny, ironic, that they wear those shirts when they're the ones that just dropped a bomb on kids playing soccer. And then the headlines of the BBC. Again, I mentioned the headlines. The headlines in the BBC was 11 dead in rocket attack on Israel-occupied Golan. That was their report. That's the headlines. And then the redaction from Israel should say, no, it's not 11. 12 not dead, 12 murdered by Hezbollah as it attacked Israeli children playing soccer. That should be the headlines. And then we end with, again, the land, the people, and the king. Our desire is to go to Israel. We're making every intention to do that. We're encouraging people to pray about joining us. At this time, Israel needs not just visitors, but friends. I'm excited about what we have to offer in terms of the land, the people, and the king. We've already made our air reservations for this. We are going. And it's November 7th through the 17th. And I would ask that you would pray about joining us. And all the information is on our website. And in the following slide, there's just some brief information about that as well. So that's the report for this week. I know it's long, but I think it's important to get all of this out for where we stand right now on the crossroads of history. So with that, pray, 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 pray. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the innocent victims of the Palestinians. Pray for the leaders in both Israel as well as in the United States. I don't think God's left the throne. I don't think God's on vacation. I think he's in control. But I think it's important that the people of God pray. God bless you. Shalom. Shalom.